Alright YouTube, time to talk about near-death experiences, and I should have made this video literally years ago, but I was waiting until I had more support so the video would reach more people. Very, very important topic. Why? Because particularly Christians and Muslims, more Christians than Muslims, but also Muslims as well, claim that as one bit of significant evidence that their deities exist, that their religions are right, members within their religion and other people who are not part of their religions, when they die, or they have not true death but near-death experiences, when they are clinically dead for a period of time, that they see the gods or holy figures or some caricature of a being from their various religions. That is, Christians claim, of course, I died and I went to hell and became a Christian because I realized I was a sinner. I died and I saw Jesus and I was confirmed in my Christian beliefs. Jesus said it wasn't my time to go and sent me back, or whatever. This is interesting, and of course I can't deny that near-death experiences do occur. People have been clinically dead and come back from that clinical death after a number of minutes. Usually anything over a few minutes makes them brain dead and they have to relearn how to walk and talk. But it is true that people have clinically died and then come back from what you could term the dead, although really it's just a ceasing of bodily functions. The cells haven't broken down yet, so they're not technically dead. Although by that token, technically in the first hour or so after a person does die for good, they're not dead either, which is an interesting concept. But let me tell you something that I've experienced as an individual who frequently debates with members of various religious communities. And that's this. Christians are not the only religion that claims near-death experiences as evidence of their faith and a confirmation of their faith. Muslims, Hindus, and Mormons all have done the same thing to me. Members of all four of those religions have spoken with me on YouTube or elsewhere, and have told me that near-death experiences confirmed their faith, converted people to their faith, and that somebody that they know, sometimes even themselves, has converted to or been confirmed in their faith as a result of near-death experiences, or that they have heard from other sources that this is the case. I've had numerous Christians tell me about their so-called near-death experiences, claiming, of course, that this is proof, and they label it that. They say, this is proof that our God exists. So what I'm going to ask you Christians, and I know very few of you will watch this video because other than a few Christian trolls who want to rate down every video that I make, very few Christians, of course, are going to subscribe my channel. But for any of you who do see this video, answer me this. If near-death experiences prove that your God is real, does it also prove that the Hindu gods are real? Or that Allah, the Muslim God, is real? Or that Elohim, the Mormon God, is real? Because all of these different groups have claimed the same thing to me numerous times. It's not just once or twice, it's dozens of times for these different religions. Now, of course, the outlier here would be the Hindus, because they're not trying to use it to convert me, they're trying to use it to talk about their own spiritual philosophies. Hindus don't generally go around attempting to convert other people. They're more interested in meditation and living a good life than they are technically winning souls for their gods, because they see spirituality differently from Christians or Mormons or Islamists. But answer me that. If near-death experiences are real, and we take them all at face value and assume, yes, they can happen, which I believe they can happen, because I give it a different explanation than the religious would, and I will go into that in a moment, but I do admit that they happen. If they're evidence of religion, then why are there different religions all saying the same thing? By that token, you could either say pantheism is true, or that it is a psychological effect upon near death, that is, that you begin to hallucinate as your brain loses oxygen and starts to shut down, and you see things from your own mind. This would probably be more likely the case than pantheism, and I'll explain why. Christians often talk about atheists converting to Christianity after a near-death experience. What's the problem here? The problem is most of those atheists have still read the Bible, they were still raised in the Christian culture, and they are familiar with the Christian precepts. It is always in the back of their mind because they live in a primarily Christian nation. Of course, if they're anywhere in the West, even though these Western nations have secular government and justice, they're still primarily composed of Christians. So upon death, what they're seeing is the inner Christian almost. They're seeing these concepts that they associate with death played out in a hallucinogenic state in their mind as a result of them being knowledgeable about Christianity. I would say the same thing for the Muslims. Most of the people who claim that folks have converted to Islam after a near-death experience, what they're missing is that most of these people lived in a Muslim nation to begin with, or were peripherally associated with Islam. The same for the Hindus. They're claiming these atheists or agnostics or social Hindus or whatever saw these figures when they died. The problem being most of these stories come from India or Bangladesh or Pakistan, places where there are a lot of Hindus around, less in Pakistan, of course, than India or Bangladesh. So what I suggest is that near-death experiences are nothing more than a hallucination that takes place upon death for somebody who's had a specific cultural upbringing, specific ideals put into their mind. Of course, it's no surprise that individuals who are Christian or are Muslim or, any of these different religions would see their gods upon dying in that hallucinogenic state. It makes perfect sense because that's the life they've lived. That's deeply embedded into their brain. I would assume that what they're essentially having is a state where the conscious and subconscious are melding together because their brain is so deoxygenated it begins to fuse the two at the same time in a vain attempt to wake itself back up. Of course, the whole mind would be firing at once. So these people are simply seeing a hallucination. This is a much more acceptable explanation of near-death experiences than, oh, it proves my God is real, because if you're saying that they're proof of your gods, you're saying that near-death experiences from those other religions are proof of their gods as well. That is to say, Christians who come to me and say, my near-death experience or my friend's near-death experience proves to me that Jesus is the Savior, you're basically admitting, because there's no logical way around admitting it, that it also confirms the existence of the Hindu deity system. That it confirms that the Mormons and Islamists are also correct about the existence of their conception of the same God. So what I put forward is, it's a hallucination. Occam's razor. It's much more simplistic an explanation to say, they're hallucinating, their brains lost oxygen, than trying to work your way around the different claims of these religions and differentiating, well, it isn't pantheism that's right because those people are obviously faking, or those people are obviously fooled by Satan and they're seeing something else when they die. No, they're seeing what they've been programmed to see. So when Christians especially come to me and claim near-death experiences, I'll usually laugh at them and try vainly to explain what I'm explaining now on this video, only they won't listen to me because they are such staunch believers. The problem being they are completely arrogant in their belief, ironically a sin against what they consider God's law, to be arrogant and haughty, and they are focused deeply and intently upon this idea that only their path is correct, all others lead to hell, and that everyone else suffers when they die, and of course, depending on the Christian, they may even say most Christians will go to hell, which is a very bleak, pessimistic outlook at best on the human condition of man as a sinful, fallen, animalistic being in need desperately of a savior and in need of constant guidance because man is obviously too ignorant to guide himself. So that's a little bit about near-death experiences. They're not quite what they seem. And if somebody comes forward and tries to tell you this lurid, grotesque description of hell they saw when they or someone they knew died, and I always question whether they're telling me the truth anyway because some of their recounts are so fantastic and out of the ordinary, anytime they're doing that, they're just seeking you as a convert. They're not giving you the full story because they themselves are deceived and don't understand that there is, a legitimate scientific explanation of what a near-death experience is. So that's just a little bit about them. Ave